We recorded an episode of Chew on This on May 17th, 2012. Bob Alvis, Scott Wilson, Will Castle. We talked some Major League Baseball. The Washington Nationals allegedly have Stephen Strasburg on a innings limit. Does that get thrown out the window if the Nationals are in the chase in August, September? We also talk about some hard baseball records to accomplish. What won't be accomplished, what could be. We'll talk about it right here on the Sports Buffet podcast.
Moving on, I would like to bring up a Major League Baseball topic. It's about the Washington Nationals.
All right.
The Nationals right now still in first place, I believe,
Yes.
in the National League East. And they have a pretty good pitcher, in case you haven't heard of him. His name is Stephen Strasburg. He's on a supposed innings limit or some type of a limit. If the Nationals are doing well in September, or in August, late August, September, do they shut him down? Will Castle.
What do you mean? Do they?
Like, your season is done. We have a limit for you. You've exceeded the limit. The end. I know you're not the baseball guy.
No.
I know you understand the question.
I understand the question, but I want some clarification. Are they playoff bound?
They're fighting for the playoffs.
So they have a legitimate shot at the playoffs?
Yes.
No, you ride him like Seabiscuit.
You do what the Brewers did with Sabathia that one year, and they got him. Pitch him every 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, and I was talking to one of my guests today, Robert Fish, about this topic from a Richmond Nationals fan as well, and baseball fan. You don't know how many times the Nationals are going to be in this case.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
they could be there every year, but they could never be there again. Strasburg could, God forbid, blow his arm out tomorrow and never pitch again. I think pitchers are coddled a lot, a whole lot.
Who's calling
Extremely.
pitchers or quarterbacks?
Pitchers.
Well, his innings limit is supposedly 160, which is not very much.
Well, and I think we've talked about this before. Pitch count or innings limit? Pitch count, even though I'm anti-pitch count too. You go out there and throw a 9-pitch inning. You go out there and throw a 30-pitch inning. 9-pitch inning should not count as the same as 30.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was like if it's 160 innings, you divide that into.
Yeah, figure out something.
Figure out your general math rule of how many pitches before you would normally pull him out of a game.
now if you want to skip him a start in June or July, I'm okay with that. I mean, I prefer to keep people as regular as possible in terms of routine.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a way in the world you shut him down in August or September. And I think if they do, things could get ugly in the nation's capital if they're...
Yeah, because if they miss the playoffs and Strasburg potentially didn't play, you're like, then it all went for naught.
Right.
Can you remember an instance of that happening? I can't off the top of my head.
No.
I mean, I don't know.
But
To me, the innings limit's a new thing.
This whole pitching, this whole babying pitchers this much did not happen when I was a teen.
Right.
Or when I was a knee-high to the table. I mean, it did not happen like this. I mean, you used to have pitchers toss 130, 140 complete games. Now when you have 100, you have like the air raid sirens sound at the stadium. He's thrown 100 pitches. Please come rescue this man.
Stretchers out front.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I mean, back then, closers threw
3 innings. Yeah.
as opposed to 1. Kyle Haney and I have talked about this, and I believe his opinion of it's harder for a closer to close now. If I'm wrong, I'm sure he'll correct me. But I think, with as much pitching as there, I don't think it's as hard to close now. I respect closers, especially guys that do it. If you can have an effective closer for more than 4 years, my hat's off to you, because I think 4 years is normally the limit. Eric Gagne in LA was lights out that 1 year, but I mean, he never had, I think he was average after that.
Yeah.
He was barely average.
That's where the Yankees should be blessed with Rivera.
And San Diego with Hoffman, they had him a lot more,
Yeah, I tend to think that you could plug anybody in and they could be.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe that's a little bit of an extreme, but I mean,
because I do think, for the Yankees right now, with having Robertson throwing a 9. First off, if you're a closer, you got to have.
I thought Robertson was on DL.
Well, he is now.
Okay.
But they brought him in to try to close it, and he gave up a 3-run jack that first night.
In Tampa, yeah.
Closers is the one spot where you can fail, and it's a game. But I mean, you've got to have a short memory. Just because a guy blows one save doesn't mean he's garbage and should never close again.
Yeah.
But it's a big difference between pitching the 7th or the 8th inning as opposed to the 9th inning. Because my thing is with sports, I think it's much more important what goes on between the ears than physically in some cases. Closing is one of those cases to where...
Well, and to your point, it seems to me like I've seen more fragile closers than anything else on a baseball field.
In terms of upstairs?
Yes.
Yes. I would agree. Pitchers in nature are very quirky folks.
But I'm close to this, but Henry Rodriguez, who's pitching for the Nationals now as their closer, he comes out one night, throws 10 pitches, gets 3 strikeouts. Then the next night, walks 3 people and gives up a grand slam. It's like, what was the difference between this day and this day that all of a sudden you can't throw it in the strike zone?
I'm trying to... Another guy that was, having great success, and then it went downhill quicker than I don't know what, was John Rocker. I think John was...
We know what precipitated.
Yeah, when he pulled Kenny Powers.
I think John was a little bit of John's own worst enemy at the same time, but I mean, it seems like out of starters and closers too, like Mark Wohlers, who also pitched for the Braves.
Yeah, closers, Mark Wohlers.
Closers can lose that strike zone like that. I mean, Mark Wohlers was towards the end atrocious. I mean, he couldn't find the strike zone at all.
There's also one other factor, I think, with a starting pitcher. They have a couple innings and they can figure out where the slump is going to call a strike or ball. Closer, you don't have that option. This is the first time you're seeing this ump.
Right.
And it's like what you think is and since they rotate every game, what you think's a strike here, it's not a strike there.
Right.
And that can get in your head of like, that was a strike yesterday. Well, sorry, Buttercup, it's not a strike today.
It's also a case of where I think more so in terms of, Clayton Kershaw, Stephen Strasburg, CC Sabathia, they don't need to have their best stuff in the first inning. But all 3 of our closers need to have their best stuff in the 9th. I mean, there's no room for error, and a lot of the times too, where that starting pitcher's got 3 or 4 pitches, that closer has.
Yes,
and the fastball.
Yeah. And the reason,
Bob was holding up one finger, by the way.
And the reason,
not the middle finger.
Gagne had such that shutout, season and a half was because he had 3 pitches. Mm-hmm. You didn't know what he was going to give, and Rivera, I'm assuming, had more than a pitch.
Well, I mean, I think everybody has more than a pitch, but they got to have that one.
Yes.
They got to have the pitch, the out pitch or whatnot.
Yeah, but I think you need to be able to have 3 pitches that at any given day you could throw those pitches and get it in. The problem with a lot of relievers, say 5 years ago, it was they only had the fastball. That was it. You're pulling a Jimmy Morris, and you have 1 pitch, fastball.
What's the hardest thing you think to do now in terms of that we might not see? Hit 400, Triple Crown. I mean, not. I don't think anybody touches 56 game inning streak. I mean, that's just. I don't think people realize how hard it is, but the one that I've gained more appreciation for lately is I don't know that anybody hits 400 again. That's going to be very, very, very tough to do. Very tough.
Kemp at first month he was just lights out, and he's dropped off after the end of the second month. It's very hard to do, especially just that's upon your average.
Right.
You can't coming from a bowler. It's one of those I want to increase my average. Like if I'm 3/4 through the season, I could have a 250 game. My average doesn't go up one club nickel because you had all this other stuff. So
it's the same way with a handicap in golf.
Yeah. With unless you're the first half of the season, if you're batting near 500, then I think you have a shot at 400. But if you're in that 340.
You're batting near 500 in the first half of the season. Well, you're doing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
you're walking on water.
You can drop off a little bit after and you still have a solid shot. But if you're at a 325 to 340 range halfway through the season, you got to go almost 3 for 4 every game.
I think to have any type of shot, I think by mid-August, you need to be at no less than 385.
Well,
at the absolute.
Yeah.
I mean, then you better get hot.
Maybe 380.
Yeah, but you better get hot.
Yeah.
You can't have a bad.
Yeah. And then the worst part with that is that if you're facing a team that's also good, they're competing for the playoffs. Guess what? You're getting walked constantly, and which kind of
lose the chance to get your bad damage up.
But they say Hamilton, Josh Hamilton, kind of changing gears a little bit with the Triple Crown, might have a good shot just because he chases a lot of. He doesn't take a lot of pitches. He chases a lot of pitches, so that might help him out with the average. I mean, you got to think with
it's been a while. Home runs, average,
RBI,
and RBI. Okay.
Josh Hamilton, you think, and you can look at it two ways. If he hadn't had that spell where he was, drugged out of the league, per se, you can argue in one sense that might have helped him because it kept him fresh and it got his head right. But I mean, just imagine if this guy had been. I mean, he's right now playing phenomenal. I mean, he's just raking.
But of those records, I would say the Triple Crown. I think it's probably easier to get than the other.
Very surprised it hasn't happened in horse racing.
Well,
since my birth, at least.
The reason is the Belmont. The Belmont's such a longer track, and the horses that are geared for the shorter races are not geared for the Belmont. And
here's what sucks, and it's kind of that's what kind of makes the Triple Crown and in many ways NASCAR kind of stupid. Your big race is the first one of the year.
Right.
Triple Crown especially should reverse it. Make your Belmont your first one, and make the Kentucky Derby an actual run for the roses.
Right.
If you have a player.
Yeah, but then if you have a horse that hasn't won the first two, then the Kentucky Derby's not all that.
It's the same for. No one gives a crap about Belmont if
they don't win the
Preakness and the Derby's not the same. And that horse race is fickle that way. But
getting back to your records thing, I just want to throw out with the way players are babied now. I don't think Cal Ripken's getting matched.
No.
I don't think anyone's coming even close to Cal Ripken.
No. Well, Matt Kemp had a 4.99, and he just went on DL. So
yeah.
Kibosh
Next.
that.
2,100 and however many games.
Right.